Welcome to Cash Talk, the podcast where we delve into the depths of finance, business, and life itself. I'm your host, John Cachia, a multi-award-winning wealth advisor with a passion for empowering ambitious Australians to confidently achieve financial freedom. Hey everyone, before we get started, this is a quick reminder that everything in this podcast is of a general nature and nothing has been tailored to your personal circumstances. So please seek personal financial advice before acting on this information. And we're back on another episode of Cash Talk, and today I'm joined by Mason. Mason, how are you, mate?
I'm going well, thanks, John. How about you?
Yeah, not bad. It's been a little bit of time between drinks. You've been on Cash Talk, hasn't it?
It's been a long time. I'm a bit nervous, actually. It's been so long. I feel like the podcast has reached new bounds as well. It's actually my first time in the new studio as well, so that's it's really exciting too.
Yeah, no, it's been really good, obviously, having this set up and being able to kind of utilise the better audio and the better visuals as well too. And you know, we're just getting started in regards to learning how to use it all, but hopefully everyone's enjoying it. We're getting some really good feedback, which is absolutely lovely. So thank you very much for all of you that are watching and listening. We really appreciate it. Now, Mason, even though there's been a little bit of time between drinks, you've been doing a lot, and one of the biggest things you've been doing is obviously helping our clients through the economic situation that we're currently in at the moment, which we find ourselves with, you know, high cost of living, high debt repayments, and people are sometimes feeling like they're not moving forward. And so today I really wanted to speak about, you know, when you feel like you're not moving forward and you're moving backwards, and what you can kind of do about that. So I might throw it over to you because I know you were really passionate to speak about this today. So I'll let you start things off.
Yeah, it's a really big one for our clients and for people in general. Like, we don't want to be falling behind. We want to make sure we're at least keeping up with what other people are doing. And I think a lot of times we can feel like we're falling behind, even if we're not so. And it doesn't help when we see these articles in the newspaper, like your super balance should be here and you should own your house by this age to make sure you can retire comfortably. It can be really disheartening to say, my super balance isn't quite there and I haven't got my own house yet. Am I falling behind? Well, what are my peers doing? And we have this society of comparison where it becomes really, really hard. And I think first and foremost, it's realizing that if you do think you're behind, creating a plan and say, okay, and where do I want to be? Because just because you've bought a house and I haven't, doesn't necessarily mean that you are behind. So I think everyone's different, and it's not getting caught up in what's my friend Sally doing and what's Mark doing and these types of things. I think that's really big in itself.
So these markers, what you're trying to say, like, you know, super or this or that, they're not really right for you because there's so many different dynamics happening in your life, and you might be really advanced in your career, which you might have done, or you might have had children where they're not taking that into consideration. So I do agree. I think the markers are not a best indicator to see where your financial health is. And I see on a lot of these kind of Facebook groups and social media platforms where it's like, you know, what should my super be at this age? And there's even websites that are dedicated to it. But yeah, there's so many moving parts. You know, what happens if you're starting a business and you're putting all of your eggs into that business and, you know, it takes 3 or 4 years before you're starting to really see some gains there. But obviously I think what you need to be more mindful of is what's the marker for your individual life. And so before I get into that side of things, Mason, what can you say for people that are in the situation where they feel like they're falling behind? They're looking at these markers. What are some practical things that they can do?
I think find someone you can talk to who you actually trust. I think that's really crucial because we have these conversations in our friend circles and we like to talk about things that are positive for us. Like, I've got this going on in my life, I've got this going on, but we try to avoid the negatives. Like, I've heard a lot of my friends talk about their really great investments. It's like, I bought Afterpay during COVID and I made a lot of money on it. You never seem to hear about the losers they pick. So I think find someone you can actually trust and disclose, hey, I'm a little bit concerned. What'd you do in this position?
And I think, Mason, what's very interesting is that I have found that the people who actually care about you will share their failures with you. And it's that vulnerability to share those failures because they don't want you to make those failures.
Correct.
And so finding that person is a great, great tip, because if you can learn from the other person's failures or mistakes, you don't need to do that. And I remember being young, actually, because it did give me a good train of thought. My dad used to say to me, John, you don't need to trip over the same logs I did. Yeah. But what he was trying to say was, I made those mistakes. Learn from me, son, so that you don't need to learn and make those mistakes. And some of my dad's greatest mistakes and failures is what helped me to be where I am today. And then I adapted that to then bring that on to other people. And hopefully they don't need to make the mistakes, like especially in regards to giving advice, Mason. We've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of people that have made mistakes, or that we've seen the potential of a threat to make a mistake, and we've been able to kind of navigate through that. And openly, we're not perfect. I've made mistakes as an advisor before that, fortunately for myself, I've been able to rectify, honest mistakes. But would I ever do that again? No. Would anyone in the business ever do that? No, we learnt from those mistakes. So I think it's really, really good that we focus on, if you're wanting to change essentially your situation, you've got to do things like that you've never done before. Yeah. And how are you going to do that? Well, number one is maybe you need to look at your circle of friends, and maybe look outside of your circle of friends and see people that are maybe trying to exceed, that can open up their hand of help to say, well, how can I help you? And you either need to get that out of a friendship group or pay for that, and obviously we've spoken on many times on this podcast around my belief in coaches and advisors, but really good tip.
Absolutely. And I think you just touched on a really crucial point there. You may have to change.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing. Humans hate change.
Yeah.
We hate it. We hate it. But you actually may be behind. We talked about don't compare yourself to your Marks and Sallys, but you actually may be behind. So, and you typically, you sort of know, like, I started my business, I haven't put super in for 10 years.
Yeah.
So maybe my super balance is behind a little bit.
I'm not going to have enough in my retirement nest egg. Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
So we put everything into the business, and a common thing I hear is, the business is my retirement. There's great risk in that.
Mate, most businesses don't sell, they sell for peanuts, if not anything.
Exactly. And what if your whole industry changes 5 years before retirement? That's hard to swallow. So you might be behind, and identifying you are behind, that should be a positive. It's like, I am behind. What changes can I now make to put me back on path and back on the right track? So I think identifying, one, I am behind, but then it's also, okay, what changes now do I make to get myself back on track? Because if you keep doing the same thing, you will not only stay behind, but you'll actually fall further behind.
Yeah, because you're not going to change your pathway. You're going to continue to create those, you continue to do the same things. If you want to stay unhealthy, you are unhealthy right now. So you need to change your habits to be healthy. So yeah, no, totally resonate with that. I think the other aspect we need to be mindful of is this whole comparison thing. I have also seen, and I know you have seen, because it's just happened with a recent client where their confidence was completely shot. And we've got to come in there and actually boost their confidence up, because they were comparing themselves about absolutely everyone. And the reality is that they were doing exceptionally well. Like exceptionally well. And when I mean exceptionally well, they're far exceeding where what they want in life. And that's what we're talking about here. The success of what we're doing this all for needs to be benchmarked on your goals, your aspirations. And we were only talking about this even today. I'm not going to compare myself to Mason, and Mason's not going to compare himself to me, because we've got different aspirations. We've got different goals. We've got different beliefs. And so, yeah, you need to figure out if you're falling behind actually for you. And the only way to really do that is understand your goals and aspirations, and then actually model it out with some realistic assumptions to figure out where you're going to be. All right. So we'll keep going with what happens if these people do identify they are falling behind. So we've done the planning, we've done the modeling. They know it's for them. What can they do?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Identifying that you are behind and you do need to make changes, that's the one thing, but there's actually doing it, isn't it? And that's the next thing. And I think really big, when we're starting to make changes, small things first. Let's do some small things. Let's get some momentum and then build on that momentum. So it might just be, oh, I'm going to save $1,000 next month or in the next 3 months. Tick that off. Awesome. Save $1,000. That's fantastic. And then reward yourself along the way too. I know, John, you're massive on having those reward markers for achieving these small goals. And that saving $1,000, that reward shouldn't be spending $1,000.
Yeah, 100%.
It might be.
But it might be. I haven't got myself a T-shirt. Yeah. I'm going to reward myself with a new T-shirt that's $50. Yeah. So really, you're budgeting for $995, but that $5 reward is the same momentum that we have with children. Yeah. So it's funny when adults don't apply that same methodology to their own life. But yeah, no, that's a really good one to set the milestones and have a reward system.
Exactly. And I think once you realize, oh, I can do this, it's like, oh, what's the next thing? Because as humans, we like to go on to the next thing. It's like, what's bigger and better? Like, you don't keep doing the same thing again. Oh, I'm going to save $1,000 next month. Like, that'd be great. But again, you're stuck in that same thing again. The changes have to keep happening. And you have to keep building further and further and further along.
And I want to take this to a case because I know, Mason, we obviously work very closely on clients. And to be honest with you, the more complex they get, the more we jam. Yeah. And so there's a guy that's currently on a yacht I think he's in the French Riviera at the moment. Shout out to him. I'm not going to mention his name, but he'll be listening and watching to this one. So I use his story as an example when someone is really actually falling behind. He had a very good on the outside, well-regarded person in his field, was doing really, really well. Like, you don't work on a yacht. I don't want to give too much away. You don't work on a yacht if you're not good at what you do. Yeah. But his finances were terrible. Terrible. Couldn't manage his finances, what was going in, what was going out. No goals, aspirations, benchmarking himself on everything, trying to make quick money everywhere. And I think what happens is that when you fall behind, you end up scrambling. And when I looked at his situation, I remember going like, you have all the right foundations to do things really well. You just need someone to help you look at what you're looking at a totally different angle. And we worked with him. And we worked with him for a while to change his mindset and change his behaviors and then create systems and reward systems. Now, this guy was in significant personal debt. And I was chatting to him last week and he's like, 2024 goal, buy a house. And I'm just like, wow. And we're only talking, guys, like 18 months going from like drowning in debt, borderline, should I go bankruptcy? Should I like start all like really bad, like the emotional toll and the mental toll on this person. He was struggling. What I commend him about is he was aware that he was struggling. Yes. He wasn't looking at anyone else. He was aware of it. And he couldn't afford me. Like, he actually couldn't. But you know what? He said, I will make it affordable to me. I will do it. Whatever it takes to do, I just need you to help me. And then when I ended up speaking to him, and I know that he shared a lot with you, was this change, this pattern in regards to not succeeding with money was actually his parents had poor money management. Like, he goes, John, as far as I can go back, there's just been poor money management in our family. Now, this guy is saving like tens of thousands of dollars now. Like, I'm talking about like in interest, actually putting away to his debts. How can you have that amount of change in a so rapid way? What's your thoughts? Because I think I know why that happened and what that now means for him.
Yeah, a great story. One of the great ones. And I think it's a multitude of things. One, willing to listen. Huge. Huge. Some people want advice, but they don't want to listen, which is very interesting. It's almost they're seeking advice to confirm.
Like validation.
Validation, that's the word. Validation.
Yeah.
Whereas this person came to us and he was willing to listen. That helped. And then for him, accountability. We check in regularly. Hey, how you doing now? when this person was in debt, it was, how much closer are we to being debt free? It's like, oh yes, I've paid that off now, and the excitement was building. It's like, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then when he got there, it was so great, and he got there quicker than I expected.
Yeah, wait, because you're getting the momentum.
Yeah,
So this is the biggest thing. Like I say to people, like you underestimate what you can achieve once you've got momentum behind you. And what was important was he wasn't giving up on he didn't feel like he was giving up. Actually, when I speak to him, I know that he's working his butt off, but he now tells me that I'm working my butt off for a reason. Whereas when I first met him, he didn't want to work. He lost all hope. He's like, what am I doing all of this for? And so it's interesting, when you start hitting these milestones and rewarding yourself along the way, you stay committed. And so it's a combination of getting yourself out of, in this guy's case, his family and his friends that didn't know about money. And he realized that. He goes, I need to put myself in a circle where people actually know money and know how to grow wealth, number one. So he was aware, seeked help, which he spoke about. Then having the coachability to be like, hey, listen, I'm all ears here. I'm going to dive head first and you're just going to teach me. But he already had that because he does jiu-jitsu. He does things like that where he's got things in other areas which mean a lot to him. And then it was around having a process and a system to make sure it happened on plan and then someone keeping accountable. Now, this guy, I am so excited to see where he's going to be in 4 to 5 years from now. And he's just one of the many, many stories of someone who's struggling, gets out of that circle, has a plan, and has a system and providing with guidance, and then gets the motivation to take it to a whole new level. Like for me to even hear out of his mouth that he's looking to purchase a property and then go through the mental trauma to understand that he's going to go into a shitload of debt to do this. It feels like when I went to go have surgery and I spoke to my psychologist and he's like, nah, you're mentally prepared for this. Like he's mentally prepared because of the training he's had by managing debt. And let's be realistic, household debt versus the personal debt, even though he was in a very bad situation, it's probably going to be fivefold at least. So great story. But not a lot of people are in that spot. A lot of people are in the spot of like, I'm not saying a lot, there's some people that are in that spot. The vast majority of people that we say that are struggling actually have decent incomes, have from the outside quite a reasonable looking life. But yet we see them once they've become problem aware. But there's a lot of people that are either listening or watching this podcast that are like, maybe you got to be honest with yourself. Am I living a life for someone else or am I living it for myself? Because the ones that are actually struggling, that we have to say, hey, listen, you have to change your ways, are the ones with significant household debt. They've made a decision to buy a house that they didn't plan out properly. Rates are where they are right now, and sorry to shock everyone, but realistic where rates are is like the average of where rates usually are. They've got the nice car, at least one. They've got childcare costs, they've got kids' education. And if you ask them, is their offset account growing or is their money growing? It's not, it's going backwards. Mm-hmm. What do you say to the people that are in that spot but scared to make the change, Mason? They don't want to be perceived by everyone else like that they've failed. Because that's what it is. And we've got to be honest with one another, yeah? You've got to learn to not give, I can't swear on here, to not give two hoots about what everyone else thinks. Don't live another person's life. What do you have to say about it, Mason?
It's so tricky because we all know this. We know we shouldn't care what other people think, but we're programmed to as well. And it's so challenging. And I think everyone says, I don't care what this person is. That's a lie. for a lot of people. It's a massive lie. I can think in my life, there's a few people who I care what they think.
Yes.
My mum
Yeah.
and some of my close friends.
Yeah.
That's it. But if I'm being honest, in the past, have I bought certain shoes or certain shirts because they've got a brand name on them and because I care what other people think of me wearing it? Absolutely, I've done that. Absolutely. And I'm actively trying. It's an everyday thing. You got to catch yourself sometimes. It's like, oh, what? Separate yourself from the decision. Why am I purchasing this for? Like, is it actually for me? Or is it because I want to impress the random stranger who doesn't know my name down the street?
So is that when you talk about big items like a house or you talk about schooling, there's so much social pressure. And the social pressure as well too is coming from, especially from millennials, from like baby boomer parents, which had a totally different way of living, financially speaking, than what we do today. So let's dive down a little bit more. What happens to the family that they've got the cars, they've got the house? What do, Mason? Because they're not going to pull the kids out of school. That's usually the last resort. Cars have got to go. Like, cars have got to go. Like, you just got to get over that cars are a luxury item. They're a want, they're not a need. Like, and if you want to boil down to it, like, you can catch public transport. Like, if that's the worst case scenario. Usually you don't even need to get down to there. You can just buy a secondhand car that you don't have debt on, that you can afford. You've got to be able to kind of go from high to low. And my mother always told me this. I've shouted out both my parents today, Mason. They're going to be loving me. My mother always told me it's easy to go up in lifestyle, very hard to go down. And so that is the case. And so people need to understand that you may need to go 2 steps back to go 3 steps forward. So cars have got to go. Like, they're absolutely a luxury item. And next is the house. If you've budgeted on a 2% mortgage rate on your budget, and the rates are at, say, 6% right now, and you're there, struggle street, can't live life, but this house means everything to you. How long is that individual going to tolerate this before something breaks, number one, mentally, emotionally, and we see it all the time, but also, what's the impact of that to all the opportunity cost?
Yeah, the opportunity cost is huge. And unfortunately, we have seen it where people are just like, they're clinging onto this life they want to keep. It's, I've got to keep it. Unfortunately, it'll either get yanked from you or you got to let it go. And you mentioned the cars before. Like, if we have up market cars, selling them down. Often, though, we sell them down, we haven't changed our lifestyle. So it's a very, very short gap. It's like, okay, we've got another 6 months. We can still stay in this house. Until your behavior changes, nothing's going to change.
Very, very important thing. Very important. And so you can't, yeah, that's right, you can't sell the car, you can't even sell the house if you don't change the habits and behavior. Because you'll get straight back into the same spot.
Exactly.
You know, I've got another client which they went through bad habits, and this was many, 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 many years ago, and they found themselves in a scenario where they had one daughter, and the house was about to get repossessed. And they came to us at a situation where they're pretty much on their knees going, help us. Now, I knew this guy for a very, very long time, so I did a bit of like pro bono work for these guys, and essentially they had to sell their house. And they went to sell their house. They come from a European family background, which was like house. And then they have gone out to rent. I spoke to him, so this was probably maybe 10 years ago when this happened. And I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago and I said to him, you've gone from good life to challenge. How do you feel about your finances now that we've worked with you for 10 years and he's better than ever? They don't stress. What they value has changed. Completely changed. They're like, what's it all for? Like, they're putting money away to investments, they're putting money away to super, they're putting money away for their kids. They've got cash flow in play. They have no stresses. Yeah, they're not over leveraged. They don't but do they care about everything else? No, they're a changed person. They care about themselves, their family. And what's very interesting is when an event like that happens, what I think is the silver lining is you realize who really cares about you. So then if you actually want to then do the things for the people that care about you, why are you doing things for people that don't care about you? Make sense? Like, when I look about the people that care about me, I don't want to disappoint my wife. I don't want to disappoint my kids. I don't want to disappoint my parents. They love me. Yeah. So for me, I wake up every day and I want to make them as proud as punch. Like, I care about other people, but I don't care about other people, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's what keeps me grounded, and people who are successful, and this is what I'm trying to get for everyone. People who are successful are very, very humble people. They have gone up. They have gone down. Yeah, they have learnt all these lessons. And then they come back out of a situation where they're a changed person. So see, change is either forced upon you or you choose to change. And either or, they have two ways. They either come out a better person or they go back to their old ways. But in most cases, they come out a better person. Yeah, and we hear this in accidents or trauma and stuff like that. It is the same with finances. So if you are finding yourself falling behind or think you are falling behind, seek advice outside of your circle. Start to think about whose life you're living. Yeah, whose life? Are you living yours truly and for the people you actually really love and care for, or are you living it for everyone else? You need to be prepared to make big choices, big decisions. Yeah, big decisions. Not small ones, big decisions. Because if you don't, you're going to be stuck in the spot that you're in right now. No latest investment is going to change that. No get-rich-quick scheme. No person promising you the world in regards to delivering this guaranteed return for your money. None of it. And once you're there, you've got to go and be open-minded to a new pathway. Because the pathway where you've got yourself on is obviously the wrong one. Mason, I'm going to start finishing things up there, but is there anything else you wanted to share?
Just while you were talking there, it reminded me of the difference between rich and wealthy. Yeah. And it's very easy to play rich and show it. As we discussed, the cars, the watches, the clothes. Playing rich is actually quite easy. It's like, it's the Instagram. That's how I see playing rich. You can't play wealthy.
No.
Wealthy's not shown.
Very silent.
It's silent. Warren Buffett's one of our favourites. Lives in the same house he bought, I think it was like 50 years ago. Or he might have even grown up in the house. So he's nearly 90. I think he's 90. So that's a long time. And he just drives the same car. He doesn't care.
And the thing is, Mason, this is the biggest thing. And just for everyone to know, I have seen a lot of people's finances. A lot. Thousands. I can tell you from B-grade celebrities down to single 21-year-old working at KFC. Yeah. Most people make their life sound better than it is. Most. Yeah. And I would say that more people that look rich, have things, are not rich. Actually, I would say that the 21 working at KFC living with his mum and dad has more money than some of the people that are big age celebrities. And it distorts where you are at if you're struggling or not. Don't benchmark yourself because you don't have the latest Mercedes that the person that you're following on Instagram or TikTok has. I can tell you, there is people that are giving advice, licensed or unlicensed, telling people how rich they are and how wealthy they are. And I know behind the scenes that they are in a horrible state. It guts me it cuts me to pieces, Mason, how people can go out and do that. I don't know if it's not in our ethical compass because it's not something that you would do. It's not something that we would do or anyone in this organization would do. So first, if you're doing this, stop it. Like you're leading people down the wrong path. Yeah. But if you want to be wealthy, I think the biggest thing is focus on time and fulfillment and point all of your energy and all of your earnings and everything you do to time and fulfillment. So you've got to figure out what fulfillment is to you. Yeah. And people used to say to me, I remember being young, and people used to say, you can't buy time. That's bullshit. You can buy time. Yeah. You can buy it. Yesterday, I worked when I want to. One of our good friends that works in an associated business with us calls me up and says, John, I can't wait to live the way you are. And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, well, John, you go for walks in the morning when you want to go for walks in the morning. You spend time with your kids when you want to spend time with your kids. Cool. But let's break this down. How much is this watch, Mason? I think I've had it for ages. It's probably $600.
Yeah, about that.
I don't even know how much it's worth. Do you get me what I mean? I think these are Aldi jeans. Do you know, like, what I'm trying to get at is, like, my value in regards to fulfillment and time. And please, I am not, like, wealthy at the stage of, like, Warren Buffett of what you're talking about at all. But I consider myself, for me, not for anyone else, wealthy. Because I have time for the people I love. And I wake up every morning feeling blessed of what I've got. Yeah. And I am so thankful, grateful for the position I'm in. That's fulfillment. Yeah, I don't dread to wake up to the day and say, like, what do I got on? So, and like I said, from me, I am humbly speaking from a very early stages, but we're talking about when you speak to the mega wealthy, they choose their diary. They choose their location. They choose what they want to do. But the behaviors and the mindset that these people have, and then what they do with their money to point it directly to time and fulfillment, it's huge. So we've talked a lot today about if you're feeling behind, don't go benchmarking yourself a lot around other people. Hopefully today's been really, really insightful about how we think about things and how you can get an insight into how our wealthy and wealthiest clients think about things. And hopefully you can go away and take some of these into your life. Okay? And also be prepared to change. Okay? Because it's only change that's going to propel you forward. Regardless if you're in challenge or you feel like you're not moving anywhere, or you feel like you've got a little bit of lack of clarity, don't know where to go next. It's that change element that is super important. Thanks, Mason, for jumping on. Can't wait to have you again. But for those watching and listening, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on and subscribe on Spotify or all your major audio platforms. But thank you again. Cheers.